It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can get a hold of me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. If you reach out to me through my email, oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you need to get a hold of me about the radio show, it's oppermanreport@gmail.com or oppermanreport.com. Go back into our archives and you look up our guest today, Tony Sperl. Sometimes we've gone under different names, Tony Washington Shapiro, and we've talked about Bill Mentzer, and we've talked about the Charles Manson family. And Tony Sperl has been a long-time private investigator in California. He's retired now, but he's got a ton of stuff. I talk to him off the air all the time, and he's always got something. He's always in the mix with something. Mr. Tony Sperl, are you there?
I am here, Ed. Pleasure to talk to you again.
And we talked about it off the air. We've been talking for 18 minutes off the air, but dude, you got to come back more often. You got to promise me on the air so I can hold you contractually and say this is you'll come back more often. What do you think?
I will.
Okay. Under threat of lawsuits, he gives in right away. Mr. Tony
I hope not.
Mr. Tony Sperl, remind the audience who is Tony Sperl, as if you could even get that out in 2 hours. Go ahead.
Well, it's so much. I was born in L.A. Actually, I'm a fifth-generation Angelino. My dad was in law enforcement. My dad also was in the entertainment industry. As we had discussed in the past, my dad was the star of a bunch of Ed Wood movies and wrote for ABC television, Day in Court, Divorce Court, Traffic Court, like all of that. Then I have been a probation officer, a policeman. I worked for the Internal Revenue Service. I was in private investigations, heavily involved in animal rescue for 60 years here in Los Angeles. And I just kind of had and the entertainment industry. I touch around the entertainment industry because it's all over Los Angeles. I went to school with a bunch of these people or their kids who then became people in Hollywood. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah, you can't help it. Like we were saying off the air too. You know, you just brush up against these people, and if you're somebody who's paying attention and tuned in, especially the old private investigator, police training and stuff like that, you just have a different kind of a sense of awareness around you. Now, the first time I had you on was about Bill Mentzer. What's going on? What's new with Bill? I heard that he listened to my show and he enjoyed the show. He didn't feel he's not going to come kill me. So what is it? What's going on with Bill Mentzer these days?
Bill basically is an old man. He still works out. He's still in prison. He will die in prison. I mean, I think everybody knows that. And but he's still fairly healthy, and that's that. And he does enjoy your show. He just doesn't. He does not make comments in the public, and doesn't want any publicity, and will bow to his wishes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Though today we're gonna touch on stuff that does touch on him. We're just specifically not going to talk about him.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so then what would you like to start with? Because we've been talking off the air for a good 20 minutes. What would you like to start with?
Well, what I want to start with is like a recap, because a lot of people are saying, who is Tony Sperl?
Right.
How does he have all these stories? They must be lies. It must be BS. And in that 18 minutes you and I were talking about is, if I had been born in Omaha and lived in Omaha, Nebraska, God bless those people, I wouldn't have any of these stories because I wouldn't be around them. Los Angeles, with the movie industry, is a crossroads. I grew up with a lot of these people. Obviously, I was in law enforcement and connected to the entertainment industry through family and friends. It gave me a unique perspective, and with my eyes open, I was able to fall into different things that have happened here that make the news and are very interesting and met very interesting people. So today I want to kind of go through lines that have been drawn. People draw lines between the police and politicians and the movie industry and criminals. And we're even going to talk about today maybe voodoo and organized crime. But to set the record straight, I think today we'll start with Compton, a city that, 40 years ago, nobody had ever heard of in Los Angeles County. It's was it's a city of about 80,000 people, and it was the gangster rap. So crack cocaine with Freeway Ricky hit Compton very heavily. And then Compton, a city of 10 square miles and about 80,000 people, had like 50 different gangs. The Bloods were born at Centennial High in Compton. And also, to set the record straight, people think of Compton like the Bronx. It's not. There are no housing projects in Compton. There are beautiful homes there. And by the way, there's a thing called the Compton Cowboys. There are actually horse ranches in the city of Compton. This city with crack cocaine, gangs, shootings, and like that. So to show parallels or lines of, you got all these gang members in the 1990s, 80s, 90s, shooting each other, selling dope, very dangerous place. And then all of a sudden, people start rapping. And some of these people connect into Hollywood, and they become famous rappers.
Yeah.
Okay? So now you've got gangs and drugs and money that are stepping into Hollywood. Now let's go for something else. Compton was notorious, I'm making the allegation, I'm saying it's true, of nepotism, the city. Okay, so the police department had family members in it, and the city council, and the school board, and people working in City Hall. They were, civil service kind of went out the window, and we're hiring Uncle Louie. Those were also allegations in corruption. Obviously, I think 2 Compton mayors were sent to jail for corruption. So you got all that in the background. Then you've got something else that is kind of unique. We're doing these lines crossing and stuff. Because you've got Compton police officers that are fighting crime. They're literally going from shooting to shooting to shooting in this small city that LAPD wasn't even doing. And such as a couple of famous detectives, I'm sure you've heard of them. Tim Brennan, known as Blondie. I think it was DJ Quick wrote a song about him. Blondie Don't Cut Me No Slack. And Robert Ladd. They were the 2 gang detectives at Compton PD and were involved in it. And then their boss was Lieutenant Reggie Wright. Well, Lieutenant Reggie Wright's son was a Compton cop that got hurt. And if you guys remember, Reggie Wright Jr. started Right Way Security. Right Way Security worked for Suge Knight. So now you got a cop that was fighting the gang members in with Suge Knight. Suge Knight also hires for protection the Southside Crips of Compton. So now you've got Suge, gang members, cops, and rappers all together in Hollywood.
Well, and then you had Suge Knight also renting a home to the attorney, the district attorney. Okay, this guy had every player. He had the biggest lawyer in Nevada. What's his name? The Goodman.
I just saw him.
Goodman Law from
Oscar Goodman.
Yeah,
Oscar
right. But
Goodman.
the other guy, the former partner of Oscar Goodman, Chestnuf. Chestnuf. Forget his first name. Oh my god, I'm losing it, bro. Okay. David Chestnuf, second,
yes.
the most powerful lawyer in Nevada at the current time, at least. Yeah, Suge Knight, man, was hung by the balls.
So, well, and again, okay, so all this power, all this money, all these connections, all these parties, all this stuff going on, and look at the end of the day, Suge's back down in Compton. And what was it? He tried to run somebody over with his car.
Yeah.
I think he's still sitting in prison.
Oh, yeah, he's done. He's never coming out.
So when people come up with these, why I'm saying all of this is conspiracies. And there are conspiracies out there, but conspiracies. Right. Okay? No, it's just happened to be right place, right time. Things came together, and people took advantage of stuff. Plus, all these people down in Compton knew each other anyway. Suge Knight was a football player, and I think he was a football coach, if I'm not mistaken, at Linwood High School.
Well, he was a player at University of Las Vegas. What was that? And UNLV, University of Las Vegas. He was a football player there. That's
Correct.
How he came out. Out of Vegas. Yeah.
He was not a gangster. No. He didn't grow up as a gangster. But he was in the right place at the right time. He saw what was going on, and he took advantage of it. And he put different players together and formed, Death Row Records and made all this money and did all this stuff. Did they make mistakes? Yeah. They made the mistake that I say all the time. You get these people that are riding high and they think they can do anything they want.
Mm.
And then they find out they can't. They can't. And I think he's a perfect example in everything that went on. I mean, the killing of Tupac, the killing of Biggie Smalls, I think that was kind of the beginning of the end of a lot of these people. And then you had Dr. Dre, who basically did everything right. He got away from these people and did things in a real business kind of manner and made himself, $350 million off of the headphones, and like that. So you've got all these different people and different influences. But I say this because, in a way, I grew up in West Los Angeles, Santa Monica area. Went to school with some kids from Bel Air. Knew a lot of kids in Beverly Hills. It's the same thing. It just in a different place. So they all knew each other, came into Hollywood. We all know each other, came into Hollywood, like that. And by the way, if somebody wanted to take a look at really what was going on with the rappers and the killings and the gangs and the stuff that was going on in Compton, they can go on Facebook and take a look at a thing called The Murder Rap, R-A-P, where Detective Robert Ladd had a lot of influence on it, where he kind of sets the record straight and he actually points out who was the real killer of Tupac. And by the way, you know that Keefe D is set to be tried in August for the murder of Tupac. And there's another genius. Fell in love with himself and the media.
Yep.
And basically confesses to the murders, thinking they weren't going to indict him and try him for it. He didn't pull the trigger, but he was in the car.
I mean, Ladd, do you think Ladd would come on the show if I can't reach out to Ladd? Would he talk on the show?
I'm sure that Robert Ladd would go on your show, and he's a perfect person to be on your show. Now, Tim Brennan, Blondie, he passed a couple of years ago of cancer, but those were the two guys, City 80,000, the two gang detectives. They would be on a shooting, and while they're starting to investigate a shooting, they would be pulled to the next shooting. That's how bad Compton was. First, I've been in Compton many times.
You mentioned Freeway Rick Ross. I had him on the show. I interviewed him. What about Gary Webb? A lot of people make a lot of fuss about the suicide of Gary Webb because he was shot, two gunshot wounds, suicide. Well, what do you make of that? Some people speculate it was a murder. Where do you land on that? Have you looked into it?
I don't because I was involved in another case. Well, let me just say this. Deaths are really kind of strange. I was at a location where there was a suicide. I was not connected to the person or anything else, but I was there with a group of people. One was an off-duty Los Angeles policeman. And this guy takes a gun right in front of us and sticks it in his mouth, and he pulls the trigger. And you literally see the back of his head come off. And he's literally dead. And he takes the gun and puts it on a table, and then goes flying backwards. Explain it. If I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't believe it. So is it possible that somebody could shoot themselves twice? And I did talk to the coroner about this. And the coroner said whatever is in your mind at the end. So if you're thinking, I'm going to pull the trigger 5 times, the body may try to pull the trigger 5 times. So it's a possibility. I don't know. My answer to that is I don't know.
Well, 3.5. It turns out 3.5% of are multiple gunshot suicides. So it's possible. And I've been talking to different people that know him and trying to figure it out. But I'm pretty sure it was a suicide. But I don't want to interrupt your flow of things. What are we going to get into today?
What we're doing to your audience, because your audience is a thinking audience and they love all this crime stuff, and so do I. But I'm just trying to paint a picture today of how all this kind of stuff can be possible, and I'm glad you brought up Gary Webb. So anyway, so we got these rappers, drug money. Okay, that. Let's move into a short one on Maury Terry.
Yeah.
How do I know about the Maury Terry stuff? Because the Maury Terry stuff, in a way, circles around Larry Flynt. And obviously, we know I worked for Larry. It was part of Larry's security team for a short period of time, but I knew all the players, which would be Bill Mentzer and his crew. And then you had Glenn, who was one of the directors of security, which is kind of a misnomer. You had Bill Ryder, who was like the executive director of security, Larry's brother-in-law. And then you had the office and house staff security. That would be Glenn. And then you had these other teams that Glenn and I have spent years talking about, that Larry would hire these security teams to do different things. So Bill and his boys were a team, and then you had, I'm getting old. A guy that just passed. He was Cliff Stewart. Cliff Stewart, who actually was a cousin to Judge Joe Brown on television.
Wow.
Cliff Stewart was like a number one bodyguard guy. He was huge. He was buff. He was a master in martial arts. If your life was in danger, you wanted to hire him. He was up there at times doing stuff for Larry. And what has come to light, it appears, I can't say 100%, but I did work with different times with Ted Gunderson, and Ted helped me on some of my own cases over the years. Ted was working with Larry. And what he was doing with Larry, I'm still to this day not sure what was up. But Larry hired different people, and there were also crews of off-duty policemen until LAPD said they couldn't work for Larry anymore that were involved in things. But the Maury Terry thing, evidently, from what we can come up with, is somehow Maury Terry contacted Ted Gunderson. So we have Maury's, book, which I have claimed even on your show in the past, has inaccuracies in it, and a lot of that information is just incorrect. For example, he accuses Bill Mentzer of being Manson 2. How could he be Manson 2 when he was in Vietnam? And you know this. He was in Vietnam at the time. It's a lie. Bill Mentzer didn't know any of the Manson people. He didn't know Abigail Folger. He knew nobody. He was not part of that crowd at all. So that kind of
but the thing is, but he accuses Mentzer of being involved in the Aris Perry murder. What does Mentzer say about that? I know you had that other one come on the show.
And he was, and I think it's been proven that the Aris Perry murder was not Bill Mentzer. Plus, there were allegations that Bill Mentzer was Zodiac.
Yeah.
And we know that's not true either. So there's a lot of inaccuracies, and I hate to say it, but I'm going to make the allegation that in that particular case, even though there are some iffy things surrounding Larry Flynt and that whole crew, which even leads to the sister of Jimmy Carter, the president of the United States, and different business people, wink, wink, around the United States that Larry was visiting with and doing business with. And there was a lot going on there, which then brings up a possible conspiracy with Larry, which is, as you probably well know, Larry was in two different branches of the military, the Army and the Navy. When he was in the Navy, he was in intelligence. He was thrown out of the Army because he was too young. And I think when he joined the Navy, he was also too young, but they kept him. And there are allegations that, he leaves the Navy, he gets this bar and he goes into strip clubs, and allegedly he would put out this bulletin that turned into his magazine, Hustler Magazine, that was so good that it became a magazine. Well, there are also allegations, I didn't make them, but this has been floating around Hollywood for a long time, that maybe Larry actually had connections with an alphabet agency or was part of an alphabet agency, and they were just using him as a front man. I don't know.
But Larry was involved in blackmail.
Larry was involved with all kinds of different things and all kinds of different people. So, which again, I'm doing this crossroads kind of a thing. So here you got this guy from Ohio, the hills of Ohio, or Kentucky, or wherever the hell he was from. I think it was Ohio. And his brother. And he hits Los Angeles from nowhere. And then all of a sudden, he's in contact with all these different people. Well, part of that was the women, the magazine, the money, the lifestyle, right? That would attract different kinds of people. And then you had people on, I never was able to get him on your show, or maybe he did do your show, which was Captain Pink.
Yeah, I had him on the show. Yeah, I had 3 hours with him. I did 3 hours. I sent them to you.
Okay, Alan Graham.
Yeah.
See, Alan Graham and I hadn't seen each other in years. He was actually at times good friends with Bill Mentzer, and at times they were like fighting with each other. But through, again, these cross lines, I had this friend that passed on a year ago, and he calls me and goes, "You know about this dude named Captain Pink?" And I said, "What about him? I haven't, thought about him in a million years." He goes, "Well, I met him, at this club." And I go, "Really? He would probably be a little too old to be in a." Anyway, he has
no. There's YouTubes of him going. Hey, this guy's out partying, man. There's YouTubes of him.
Yeah, well, he's deceased, but
Alan Graham.
Alan's been dead for 2 years. Really?
Then he must have died right after he did the show. I had him on just 2 years ago.
Here's the thing.
He sounded old.
This is good. We're really going to get interesting now.
Yeah.
Get off the script. So Alan and I, we talk on the phone and we're like attacking each other verbally.
Right.
And then we just like came together. We straightened stuff out and came together. Alan Graham was the brother-in-law to Jim Morrison.
Right.
Alan Graham had been in the military in England. Alan Graham saying to me, and maybe he said it on your show, maybe he didn't. Alan Graham, it was not unusual for Larry Flynt to give Alan Graham $250,000 to drive around in his car, in his trunk. And I have verbal documentation from other people that confirmed that it was true. Alan Graham stayed friends with Larry to the end. Okay? Alan was supposed to go on this documentary that Nicholson Schreck, and we'll get to him in a minute, was making 2 years ago about Jim Morrison. And just before he went on, he died. He had been suffering with some kind of a disease, and he passed on. And I swear, there are so many of these people I've known for years that I never got on video, I never got on tape. He's one of them. And just prior to them saying that they would go on video or tape, and I normally would have my other Hollywood friends do it, they die.
Another one, too, is a lot of these old-timers, I'll be talking to them off the air trying to get them to come on the show, and they're always telling me, oh, no, I got this documentary deal. It's right around the corner. I got this big payday coming. And they're just dangling this thing over their head just to keep them quiet. They keep these guys in a closet for years, offering them some deal after deal after deal that they're going to get paid for their story. And it never comes, man. And I've seen that so many times. I know it's an operation. A couple of quick questions for you.
It's that. Hang on. It's that, or as I told you off the air, I was told by legal counsel never to write a book and take. We're talking about just general stuff today, and the other stuff I talked about was general. But from being a private investigator, which you understand, and people that I've dealt with, there's stuff I'm taking straight to the grave.
I'd tell you something else. Sure. Legal counsel, man, these guys will tell you not to do anything. Because if they let you go, then they're on the hook. They're always going to tell you not to do it. Don't do it. Oh, I see those faces. Oh, don't do that. Give me a break, man. I would never do anything. I don't tell when I was out there smoking pot and stuff, man. It's, no, don't talk to them. No. Like everything. One time my lawyer, I was starting a new business. He took the contract and ripped it up right in front of me. I'm not like, you signed this. I went in with no contract. Okay? But I just want to back up to a couple of things. Bill Ryder, for the Roy Radin murder, he loaned them. That's his gun. He loaned them that gun. Now, I was told Bill Ryder was CIA. Well, what do you make of that?
No. Bill Ryder was a cop, and I've heard I'm not going to go into it because I don't want Bill Ryder to sue me.
Bill Ryder's dead, no?
No, Bill Ryder's still alive.
Oh, no. Bill Ryder I didn't say nothing. I'm cutting that part out. Go ahead.
Bill Ryder's still alive.
Yeah.
I know exactly where he's at, and I'm not going to say where he's at.
Okay.
I think I said this on another one of your shows. because I don't want something to happen to Bill Ryder and then put the finger to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to state this on your show too. Nobody that's in prison or whatever has been told where Bill Ryder is. I know where he is. I've told nobody. And I got it from Alan Graham. Alan Graham told me where he was. And it was like, yeah, he knew. He's dead. He knew. And I'm just leaving it alone. There's no.
Okay, we'll move on.
I think what Glenn and I talked about today, real quick, about Bill Ryder. You talk about the gun.
Yeah.
You talk about Bill Ryder is the one that technically put
Mentzer in prison.
Bill Mentzer, Alex LaMotta Marty, Bob Lowe, the crew, and Lanny Greenberger. He's the one that basically put them all in prison.
Yeah.
By wearing a wire. And the question is, what did the police, if they did, what did the police get Bill Ryder on to flip him as a witness against these guys? Because they got away with that murder. The thing that burned them was Bill Mentzer opened his mouth while Ryder was taping him, and that was the end of the game.
Well, I think it's public record that he loaned them the gun. Maybe not to commit a murder, but that was his gun that they used.
Yeah, but that's not the reason why he turned him in. You know what I'm saying?
No,
they weren't on to Ryder. Ryder was not even in the mix.
Okay.
On that murder, and I have allegations from a source that the intent on Roy Radin was not to kill him.
Okay.
Roy was not to kill him. It was Alex LaMotta Marty got upset and excited like he would and accidentally killed him.
That's interesting because there really would be no reason to kill him. You know, he's making money for him.
Right. There was no reason. There was no reason. And we can also go into give me a second here to collect my.
No, take your time.
Bob Evans.
Yeah, right.
Bob Evans. I'm going to see this also through sources. Bob Evans had nothing to do with the dope dealing. All Bob Evans wanted to do was make a movie.
You think
he
so?
was looking for money for a movie. And again, let's go to crossroads and lines. You got people that came together to make a movie. You had allegations that Roy Radin was into bad stuff. You've got more than allegations against Lanny Greenberger and her ex-husband, who was allegedly a drug kingpin that had all this money. And then you had this crew that one of my friends called the William Mentzer gang. He called him a criminal gang that could commit any crime and get away with it until they couldn't. That's what somebody stated about that. Okay, that came together. So it was a meeting that spurred into other business, and that happens in Hollywood a lot. Happens in New York City too.
Quick question about Evans. Quick question about Evans. I heard a story, Tom Forcade from the New York Yippies. I came out of the New York Yippies as a kid. And he started High Times Magazine. High Times Magazine, their magazine was published by Flynt Publications. And they had a very unusual deal, too, where he would print the magazines and they would buy the magazines and then resell them. Kind of like he would do in the marijuana business. Okay. Now, and I heard a story about Tom Forcade meeting with Robert Evans and putting some cocaine in front of him, making it clear to him, hey, I can supply you with all the cocaine you need. Have you heard stories about that? What do you know about Tom Forcade? Anything?
I don't know anything about that. The rumors around Bob Evans and dope have been there for years, but I have no confirmation on it. I didn't know anything about it. The people that I know that knew Bob Evans were saying that Bob Evans was about Bob Evans and about Hollywood, and like that, they never saw him with drugs.
Okay.
The people that I know are saying.
Now, what about Bob Evans and sex trafficking? You know the story about Heidi Fleiss. He's ordered a 17-year-old prostitute from Heidi Fleiss. And also, too, this is kind of, that girl, Babby, the one who was played the real-life girlfriend, the high school girlfriend of Woody Allen from the movie Manhattan. She was an assistant for Bob Evans. Bob Evans, and she also worked for Jeffrey Epstein, so as an assistant. Okay, but I talked to a bunch of women.
This particular lady that you're talking about was Bob Evans' last assistant.
Okay.
And I had her cell phone number.
Okay.
And I actually had called her and talked to her as Bob Evans was dying because I wanted to clear the air. I was going to tape Bob Evans without him knowing it. I wanted to get him on the phone and just talk to him and chat to him and get Bob Evans to say on tape that he was not involved in drugs, he was not involved in a whole Roy Radin thing and like that, because I believe it to be the truth.
Oh, you were doing that on behalf of Mentzer?
No, actually, it was a third party.
Okay.
It actually was a third party that wanted that statement. Okay.
So you're doing it on behalf of Mentzer?
Not Mentzer. It would benefit Mentzer, but it was not on behalf of him.
Someone else.
There was a third party involved that
Okay.
wanted this statement from. And the message came back that, quote, Bob was not taking on new friends at that time, and less than 4 months later he was dead, which meant that Bob Evans was not in good shape to talk to anybody.
Okay.
At that point.
What do you know about the whole story?
No, I did do that because I truly believe that Bob Evans had nothing to do with the Roy Radin murder, and I'm going to stand by, I think, from sources that Alex Lamont and Marty accidentally killed Roy Radin. It was a shakedown. That's what it was. It was a shakedown. And by the way, I also tried to talk to the guy from Sanford and Son. Give me his name.
Lamont, Damon Wilson.
Well, Lamont. Damon Wilson.
Yeah.
And Damon
I tried to talk to him, too. He's terrified.
Damon Wilson went absolute. He sent me a text message back. And I'm not even going to repeat. He was pissed.
Oh, really?
He was pissed. And it was basically, don't ever contact me again.
Oh, yeah. He's terrified. Something else must have happened. Something else beyond. They must have had other contact with people around this to make him that terrified.
Well, there's something crazy that goes with that, and we should talk about it. I'm not involved in it. But I saw a documentary where he was talking about that what was the old guy's name that played Fred Sanford?
Red Fox.
Red Fox.
Yeah.
That him and Red Fox, when they were filming the show, were carrying guns because they were afraid of the audience.
You know what?
Look that up.
I believe it because the same thing was going on the set of Welcome Back, Kotter. I used to talk to that guy Ron Palelo, who told me that there were Womack and Kotter were bringing guns to the set, and that was coke stuff too as well. And when I asked him about Haller, with that girl Haller, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes,
Melanie,
that's the lady I talked to. Go ahead.
Melanie Haller. Yeah, as soon as I asked, Ron Palello was telling me every little piece of gossip in the world that he knew. As soon as I mentioned Melanie Haller, he never talked to me again. He would never respond to me after that. By the way, Damon Wilson went on to become like a preacher. This guy found God, found Jesus, became a preacher after all this stuff like that. And he had a book about how there's satanic lyrics and jingles and stuff like that in commercials and stuff. That's where this all this took him.
Yeah, well, what I found kind of strange was he had a house in Mission Viejo, which is about 50 miles south of L.A. It's a nice community in Orange County. And he also was living at a Desert Hot Springs outside of Palm Springs. Yeah. And I didn't get that, except he probably wanted to, he was scared.
Yeah.
And he probably just wanted to be away from the whole Hollywood scene, which we're discussing. Compton gang members and, all these other type of people. I think he wanted to live his life.
Robert Evans, back to Evans for a second. Do you know the story about the recording from Heidi Fleiss? And you know who Dan O'Hanks is, right?
No, I don't.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, Dan O'Hanks is you would know. You should know him, man. I tell you guys would get along great. No, but Dan O'Hanks, he's the one who had tape. He wiretapped Madam Alex. No, he wiretapped Heidi Fleiss, and then he had that recording of Evans ordering the teenage prostitute, and then Paul Baresi allegedly went in and stole the tape from Dan O'Hanks. Any workings with Paul Baresi?
No. But I've heard of stuff like this. I have met Heidi Fleiss. I've met her twice. One, she was in the jewelry district downtown L.A. with her father. I met her there once. And then she had something to do with a clothing line in East downtown L.A. Where we provided the security and the property management of this particular building. And she was there, and I met her there also once. Other than that, I had no contact with her.
I ran into her once myself at a Home Depot in Henderson, Nevada, when she was living in Nevada. And she was running a doggy daycare, and she was buying supplies for that. I didn't talk to her or anything like that, but we saw her there. And what do you call it? And then it became a big scandal, too, that the dogs are being abused there, but she blamed somebody else. But interesting, you know what she's doing today? She
Something
owns
with birds?
No, she owns a private airstrip.
What?
Look it up, man. Look it up. What's going on there?
Whoa. I heard that she was in Pahrump.
Yeah.
And she was doing something with animals, like you're saying, dogs. Then I heard she was with exotic birds.
Yeah. She's always had a bird collection. She has a huge bird collection. There was a problem, too. Somebody did arson on her birds, too, at one point. She was living with Hoff. Yeah, have any dealings with Dennis Hoff?
No.
Did a whole
He's
show
dead.
last week on Hoff. Yeah. Yeah, he's died, yeah.
Yeah, he's dead.
Yeah, a lot of people think that's suspicious, too. Okay. A couple of things I want to go back to Larry Flynt world.
Sure.
First of all, you must have looked into Aris Perry a bit because of your connection to Mentzer. What do you make of Aris Perry's widower, Dr. Perry, and his bizarre doings?
I don't. It's just I'm going to tell you something that a chief of police of a city, I'm not going to name his name, I work for him,
okay,
said that he thought that cops were the strangest people he ever met in his life. And I'm going to give you this quote. I think people are the strangest people I ever met in my life. There are all these allegations against different people. So I personally have not talked to people involved with the Aris Perry thing. I just got my information offline and by obviously talking to a particular individual who claims that they had nothing to do with nothing.
All right.
And I believe it.
Okay.
But nothing in this day and age, nothing surprises me. You as a private investigator, let's throw this out to the audience. As a private investigator, I get Hollywood people, and I've done some very big Hollywood people that I work for. And normally, I don't know anything. I know that they're working in Hollywood, making a lot of money, living in a big house, driving fancy cars. And then all of a sudden, you're getting a phone call at 11 o'clock at night that their entire life is burning down. And you find out about this entire other side of them. And my first question, or my first statement always is, and question, and I'm sure you've done it, is, why didn't you call me sooner?
Yeah, that's so true, man. You know.
So that's part of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with here, and the Larry thing again. Now, I will vamp with the conspiracy stuff around Larry and the possibility that he was working with an alphabet agency. Is he comes from nowhere. He meteorically has this rise. And the St. Cloud house, I've been in a million times.
Now, wasn't that based on he had some nude photos of Jackie Kennedy or Marilyn Monroe or something? What was that?
What's the no? Captain Pink had a copy of it. No, it was the sex video of Ronald Reagan.
Okay, right. Now that really happened, right?
No, I to this day, Captain Pink said it was real. Other individuals I know, I've never seen it. Other individuals said it was fake as hell, including the former director of security, Larry.
He might have denied it on my show. But now, Captain Pink, I asked him about the whole thing about the Mitch Werbell and those the check for the $1 million check that Larry sent. I read the whole FBI report. That Larry paid a $1 million check to kill Frank Sinatra and Hugh Hefner and all these other guys. And Captain Grahm, Alan Grahm, Captain Pink, acted like I was crazy. He had never heard, according to him, he had never heard that story.
There are other stories. I've heard that story. It's just a story, but there are other stories about Mitch Werbell that I would love to be able to tell you, but I can't.
Okay.
And they are true stories, and it's so strange and so crazy. I just can't tell you the stories will go to the grave with me. So that's the end of that one. But they're true.
What if we were to record stuff and I'll save it until one of us dies?
We could do that at some point. We probably should.
But then if we did that, I might kill you so I could broadcast it. It would be like the end of Treasure of Sierra Madre, me and Tony Sperl with one eye open.
Oh. But by the way, I want to touch on something else that I forgot to touch on.
Go ahead.
Okay, and it's something that you and I have talked about, I think, off air in the past, and that would be the Son of Sam killings reference allegedly in Mentzer. And this is where Ted Gunderson comes in. Ted Gunderson was firmly convinced that Bill Mentzer was a blonde, and Bill has never been a blonde in his life. And that was something that started this whole thing, because even the director of security for Larry Flynt had talked to Maury Terry at length multiple times. And here's another one. And actually, Maury Terry had called him. I know for a fact because I was involved in it. He had called Maury Terry had called this guy literally a month before he died and wanted to recap where he thought he may have erred and where he thought he was spot on. I don't know if Alan Grahm was involved in that or not, but he was coming back because I think he was going to redo the book. Weren't you the one that told me that he was working on?
He was always working on additional revisions of the book that never ended. And all his research material, it's out there, it's available. It's been passed around all over the place. And the Netflix did a whole smear job. I don't know if you saw that, but that was a whole smear job. I got a question for you. I don't know if it's a question or I want to share some information. Ted Gunderson. We can't forget that Ted Gunderson was COINTELPRO. Not maybe COINTELPRO. Ted Gunderson was COINTELPRO. That's what it was. LAPD, COINTELPRO. That's what he was right there. That was his job. And he told me when I was negotiating the settlement with Art Bell, he told me, well, I'm not worried about this defamation lawsuit because my errors and omission insurance, my private investigator's errors and omission insurance is going to cover this for me. And at the time, I didn't know anything about radio. I didn't know anything. And I just said, okay, yeah, that's sure. It probably would. But I know now it wouldn't cover what you said on the radio. Your private investigator for your PI company is not going to cover what you say on the radio. And then his insurance company did settle that lawsuit. It couldn't have been his PI insurance. And then I found out right before his death, he was working out of the LA FBI office. I had a client that saw him there working in office. Now, so this whole story about Ted Gunderson, man, the guy was COINTELPRO. I don't think he ever left the FBI.
Well, okay, I've heard that, but what I can talk about is, and I know you're telling the truth, is former director of security for Larry Flynt, also had talked to Ted and said, aren't you afraid of this lawsuit? And he said, my insurance is going to cover it, blah, 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 blah. I have this other information. This is what he said. He wasn't scared of it at all and stood on it. Plus, that guy that I'm talking about, the former director of security, who knew Ted very well, used to stay at Ted's house, said that Ted had this strange allegiance to certain people, that he would connect with certain people, either working with them or they were clients or whatever, and whatever they said he took as the gospel truth, and he would stand on it until he died. Mm. And that was what caught him up in this. And then later on, this former director of security said, was talking to Ted, well, now what are you doing? He says, well, the only thing I regret about this whole Art Bell incident is that I can't do my show anymore because I can't get insured.
Interesting.
Okay, so that is another angle to it. But I know you're telling the truth because it matches up with what I know. Next point. Yes, I have talked to the FBI in the past. Now, I've had some FBI agents giggle and laugh when talking about Ted. Yeah. I had a very high-ranking FBI agent with a straight face say, I worked for Ted in Dallas when he was the head of the Dallas FBI. Oh, boy, I just don't know what happened to him. Mm. That's what he said. And I've heard rumors that Ted was still working with law enforcement. I know for a fact that Ted, I got this from sources, that Ted was instrumental in a way, on getting William Mentzer and Bob Lowe and Alex LaMotta Marty. He was somehow working with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Doing what? I don't know. And that goes back to Larry Flynt. So then the question is, was Larry Flynt cooperating with people to get these guys put in jail? I don't know, but it's a thought. I have no proof of that at all, except allegedly what I'm being told, and I believe it to be truth, that somehow Ted Gunderson was working with Larry at the same time, and all these people crossed. They all knew each other. It's strange.
Well, and all these escorts and these, Larry had access to porn stars. That they trafficked those women. They're all informants. They're always informants. I've never known one not to be an informant.
Well, let me say this. I was working. We were talking about Compton earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. When I left the police department, I was working for a company that was in the adult business in South Central LA in a very bad gang neighborhood. We worked plain clothes, obviously, and a lot of these guys were deputy sheriffs. Some of them became very famous deputy sheriffs for not good things, but we were working there and like that, and you would have been shocked at who they were connected to. And what is so funny is, I don't want to mention this guy's name because he was good to me, that owned this particular company, or allegedly owned it. He was a president. I was on Facebook trying to find some of his former employees, because a couple of those guys had been friends of mine. And I come across this one guy, and there's a picture of the owner of the company we work for, this guy I'm talking about, and Larry Flynt, just before Larry died. And they were dining at Lowry's steakhouse on La Cienega in Beverly Hills. And I was like, I didn't know that they knew Larry. Because normally in the business, it was Playboy, Larry, and this other guy that I'm not mentioning, okay? If you worked for one of those entities, you couldn't work for the other two. In security or whatever, you could.
Okay. Gotcha.
And in essence, and there they are together. But this was, years down the road after, the 1980s and 1990s, when all these guys were in their heyday. And by the way, I've been to two parties at the Playboy Mansion. I met Hef. I was there the night the whole cast of Hill Street Blues was there.
Oh, really? Okay.
And as you remember, Hill Street Blues, they didn't pay me for it. Hill Street Blues did that episode parodying my personal life.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I do remember.
Okay, but that's not why I was invited there. What was so funny was the people that were hosting it invited me to go there. Maybe that was in their mind. I don't know. That was one night, and then I was there another different night. But I was talking to their security, and they were chatting me up, and it was like, "Are you looking for a job?" And when they found out I had worked for Larry Flynt, it was like, absolutely not.
Gotcha.
You work for Larry, you're not welcome here.
What about what do you make of Ted Gunderson's relationship with Col Michael Aquino? I was told that they talked on the cell phone every single day.
Okay, now this was one of the things, we're going to skip down to this, that I wanted to talk about, and that's all that Stargate stuff and First Earth Battalion, Lieutenant Colonel James Shannon, Major Ed Dames.
Remote viewing,
and this Lieutenant Colonel that you're talking about was involved in it too.
Oh, really?
Aquino was big into the satanic, allegedly, whatever.
Temple of
stuff,
Set.
And he was...
Temple of Set.
Right, and he was connected to Nicholson Schreck. Now let's go back to your audience that doesn't know Nicholson Schreck.
But no, but before that, the connection between Gunderson and Aquino. What do you know?
Nothing. He was just another. It's just another source because you could throw 100 names out, and all I'm going to say is it was just another source to Ted Gunderson.
Okay.
I wouldn't read much more into that than there. My better connection to Aquino is Nicholson Schreck.
Right.
Because they actually were doing business together. So Nicholson Schreck went to University.
I'm sorry to interrupt you one more time. Any information about Aquino working with the National Security Agency, the NSA?
That's an allegation, and that's why I want to get into this story.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, I don't want to keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
Because you really need to hear it.
Okay.
This guy I go to high school with, he decides to go into the punk rock scene and like that, and he has a group called Radio Werewolf. So his real name is Barry Dubbins. He goes by the name of Nicholson Schreck.
Okay.
And in his punk rock career, he meets Zena LaVey, who's Anton LaVey's daughter. He marries her, and he becomes the spokesperson, number 3 in command of the Church of Satan. Now, he makes no bones about, and so does Zena, that Anton LaVey was nothing but a con man, period. He wasn't a real Satanist. He was just a con man making money, okay? I also have met, he's now dead, Stanton LaVey, the grandson, and his wife. I've met them in the past also. So from these connections into the Satan world, alleged Satan world, Schreck was working with Aquino. They got together and they were working together. And to get into some of this stuff that I want to talk about, Stargate and Major Ed Dames and all of this, Aquino was involved in it, or he claimed he was involved in it to Schreck, and said that it was just a bunch of nonsense.
Oh, really?
So that would be your bona fide that he was working for the National Security Administration, because they were heavily involved in it. Now,
well, I just want to be 100% clarified. We're talking about National Security Agency, the encrypted, the computer guys, Maryland.
The NSA. The NSA.
Yeah, the NSA, the biggest employer in Maryland, yeah. A computer. And they own the University of Maryland, which is also an MK Culture facility.
And supposedly and allegedly they were working with, give me a second, Stanford University was also involved in
the Stanford experiment. Right.
Exactly. So they were involved in it, and Aquino told Schreck in no uncertain terms, it doesn't work.
Now, I had heard stories from people from Feral House that Aquino was floating around the astral plane and could travel in the astral plane. True or false?
He told Schreck no.
Really?
That it didn't work. That's what Schreck told me.
Okay, last
You're
thing.
going to have Schreck on the show.
No, I know we're going to have Schreck on the show, and I'm going to grill him. No, I'm easy on you. I'm going to be tough on Schreck. Let me ask a question. What do you call it? Back to Aquino again. Aquino's death. He dies. There's some mystery with his son. Is confused what's going on with the death. He doesn't know. The ex-wife or the mother or the widow keeping things private. Then, out of the blue, a fellow who just happens to work for the NSA, he was a commentator, a true crime guy, podcaster type, goes and obtains his death certificate and finds it's a suicide. Well, what do you know anything about that? The suicide or death?
I don't, but Schreck knows all of
Schreck
this.
would know, you're right.
He will tell you everything you want to know about it. But I want to flip to something else. I was on a case with the Russian mafia around the year 2000. And I'm not going to go into it. Some people went to prison behind it and whatever. Okay. And I come across this guy, and the guy was having problems with immigration. He was a former KGB colonel, and you'd be shocked at the number of former KGB agents that wound up in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
How they did it, I don't know. I actually had gone personally to and had a meeting with the head of now ICE, in downtown Los Angeles, and his only comment was, they won the Cold War, they're here.
Yeah, Brooklyn, too. I ran into a PI in Brooklyn who was a driver for Gorbachev. Okay, this guy was super, and these guys, they had all kind of computer hacking stuff going on. So, yeah, KGB is in the United States.
So here's the deal. So this guy, I'm not going to mention his name, had been the supervisor of Vladimir Putin But many years ago, when Putin was basically nothing, was nothing. Okay. Well, Putin, when he took power, issued arrest warrants for everybody that was connected to him in the KGB. That's a true story. And this guy was fighting it. And the guy still, as far as I know, if he's still alive, was in L.A., still in L.A. But one of the things I asked him about that I was really curious about was I threw up remote viewing. Yeah. Stargate, remote viewing, all of this. And he stopped. You've worked with Russians. He stopped, and he had that dead look in his face. And he just, it was a long, like 10-second pause, studying my face with that look of, I wish you'd die, you know. And he said, yes, I'm very familiar with it. And I said, well, is it real? And he still stares at me. He goes, yes, it's very real. And I said, well, you know, Major Ed Dame says that they're not doing this stuff anymore and everything else. And he said, yeah, that's what they're saying. But Russia never stopped. And I said, they had success with it? And he said to me, why would I tell you? Just like that. Why would I tell you? And that was the end of the conversation, which led me to believe that they were having success with it, and allegedly the United States wasn't. But you and I both know, is the United States going to let the public know and the Russians know that we're having success with remote viewing and Stargate and all this other stuff?
Well, then, do you think that Aquino was lying to Schreck?
I have no idea, but that's what Schreck said, is that they had no success with it at all.
But what about my
didn't work.
But what about Schreck today? What does Schreck today say? What does he think? What does he do?
Oh, that's what he said about Aquino. That's what he said.
Okay.
Because this, I was going to deal with this later, but okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Another thing that ties into this, and you're going to say, well, Tony, you're not with the military. You're not this, you're not that. Yeah, but things float through L.A. Okay, now, President Trump, and the public knows this, President Trump has basically alluded to he can hit Venezuela, he can hit Mexico, those cartels, and take them out too. Bad idea. Really a bad idea. Okay? But what has come up, and you can look it up on the internet, there are peasant armies that are being sponsored. Gee, I wonder by who? In Mexico, that are taking up arms, that are starting to fight the cartels. Something that a lot of people don't know, but you can find this on the internet too, and there are people that have been sent to prison behind it. The cartels and different organized crime people from Latin America that some of these people I have met, they have Santa Teresa altars. Yeah. And Santa Muerta and all that kind of stuff. They do this kind of stuff to ward off, you know, the spirits that would take them down. And as you well know, I went to, wish I hadn't, I had been an invited guest to Charles Manson's funeral.
All right.
And what was circulating, and I think I maybe I did, maybe I didn't, the word was out that people from Latin America wanted Charlie's body. When they couldn't have Charlie's body, they wanted his ashes. They wanted to use them in these ceremonies because they saw Charlie as a very powerful kind of individual. Let's throw Helter Skelter out the window for a second. Charles Manson documented, Schreck documented it. You need to interview him about it. In the 1950s, Charlie Manson rolled down to Mexico City for 6 months and studied to be a curandero, like a magic man kind of a thing, in Latin America. And a lot of Latin American organized crime people knew this. That's real. That is real. And another point I want to make about Charles Manson is a lot of people, 1967, he gets out of prison, and he just waltzes into the Beach Boys and the Hollywood scene. Wrong. In the 1950s, he was out of prison. He was in Hollywood as a pimp and a drug dealer. He already knew Hollywood people.
What was it? It was Star Entertainment. The guy had an escort service.
Exactly. So he was already known in Hollywood. So him coming back to Hollywood was nothing. The thing that people are getting wrong on Charles Manson, and I know all these Manson people, again, because I've been in L.A., not because I'm a follower of Charlie. My take is Charlie was a career criminal. a manipulator. He could sing and he could play music. That's great. A lot of people in prison can't. Okay. What they're misconstruing here is all he did was grow his hair long and a beard. Charles Manson didn't spend a lot of time at Spawn Ranch. He was busy roaming the world. The girls were not these little flower children. Susan Atkins was a stripper, allegedly molested by her father. They all had problems. They were problem people. Helter Skelter was nonsense. I mean, the LAPD had it down right.
Tex Watson was no hippie. He was ex-military, and this guy had some juice to avoid extradition.
He didn't live at Spawn Ranch. He was in a wig business. He worked at a wig business in Hollywood, lived in an apartment with his girlfriend. The wig business was a front for drugs.
Right.
By the way, did you see in Variety magazine 2-3 years ago where a former employee of Jay Sebring came out and said that Sebring's salon was a front for dope? You didn't read that?
No, I didn't read that, but everyone talks about it. You know, that's been talked about for a while. What do you make of all this stuff about Polanski? Because wait a second. There's all kind of Robert Evans connections to this stuff too, and snuff films and pornography being filmed. What do you make of all this?
I'm not buying the snuff films.
Okay,
but there were allegations against Polanski for, let's call it, swingers. And I think I told you maybe on your last show, and somebody that was the wife of somebody that was very famous, that recently died in the last few years, had actually said to me when I was doing some investigations for Nicholson Schreck, had stated the first time that she had ever used drugs was at Sharon Tate's house. And what is I'll give you another one. What's so crazy is in animal rescue, there was a lady by the name of Sandy Hogan, who was in animal rescue in Los Angeles, my mom and my sister and whatever. Sandy Hogan was best friends with Doris Tate. My sister used to talk to Doris Tate on the telephone. This is after all the murders and stuff. And Doris portrayed Sharon as squeaky clean. Now, hang on. Plus, there was a lady that was in animal rescue by the name of, I'm getting senile here. It'll come to me in a second. She was Sharon Tate, most beautiful woman you've ever seen. She was Sharon Tate's stand-in. And said the magic words that Sharon was just the nicest person you'd ever want to meet. Which you hear from a lot of different people. But then there was that side, you know what I'm saying? The allegations that behind closed doors there was drugs going on at that house. Yeah. There were orgies, like sex orgies.
Well, Polanski raped that little 13-year-old girl. That was in Jack Nicholson's house. Again, a buddies of Evans. That whole little crew. What do you make, too, of John Phillips, Papa Phillips, supposedly, according to Ted Gunderson, a head warlock of this group up there? What do you make of that?
I don't. What I go by on that particular one, I was not part of that investigation either. But what I had seen, I don't know if it really happened or not. The daughter obviously had substance abuse issues. I don't know.
Oh, what's that? You mean the Polanski rape?
No. The daughter of Papa.
Oh, yeah, right.
His daughter accused him of molesting her.
Yeah, Mackenzie Phillips. Yeah, I believe her. Yeah.
Yeah, right. She has substance abuse problems. I don't know what to say about that. I do know, obviously, Michelle had an affair on him, and there was other stuff going on. Great group, great music, and they stopped performing together too soon. Something was wrong. Something was off. What it is, I don't think we'll ever know.
What do you make of the daughter? I forget his name.
Let's go a step further than that.
Yeah.
Look at Mama Cass Elliott. Allegedly, it was Chinese food and a bottle of wine that she got pregnant. Has the father of her child, who is allegedly still living in West L.A., has that person ever been identified? I don't think so.
I don't know. You're right. Yeah. Who do you think it is?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have absolutely no idea. I know that she was in love with Cass Elliot was in love with what was his gimme? Not John Phillips, the other guy. From the Mamas and the Papas. I can't think of his name.
I don't know. Yeah.
He was Canadian. Anyway, he's gone also. Michelle Phillips is the only one that's left. So there were a bunch of crazy things going on there. Plus, you had the whole Laurel Canyon scene. I was around as a kid for that, the whole Laurel Canyon scene thing of all these different groups and stuff up there. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. It was a different time. So you have to look at the text within the context of what was going on at that time. So I'm really not sure.
What about the daughter or the sister of that guy? He thinks his father's a Zodiac killer, and his father was swapping wives with John Huston. And somehow that daughter, who was molested, the father went to prison for molesting and wound up living with the Phillips.
Yeah, well, hang on. You're going to love this. Did you know that Grandpa from the Munsters?
I met Grandpa several times, yeah. Al Lewis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Al Lewis.
Yeah, he was.
Al Lewis had a connection to Charlie Manson.
Oh, really?
Allegedly. And it had to do with some kind of babysitting or Schreck will be able to tell you about that. So there's another connection. So none of this, again, these crossing lines, this fishbowl, nothing surprises me.
Now, Al Lewis, because you mentioned in the list of things you wanted to talk about organized crime, Al Lewis owned a couple of nightclubs and restaurants, and he owned a comedy club on Staten Island. That's how I knew Al Lewis. I used to run into him all the time. This guy seemed to be connected to a lot of things.
Well, he didn't own him. He was the front man for him. As I understood it, he was the front. He was a small partner.
Yeah, definitely got a piece. Yeah,
business partner. Yeah, he got a piece, but a small piece. They had the bigger pieces. Al Lewis also allegedly,
because those are organized crime places. What?
Yeah, well, but Al Lewis allegedly hung out with, like Black Panthers.
Yeah, I believe that,
and stuff like that in the '60s. He had a really. Somebody should write a book about him. He had an interesting life going in all kinds of different directions. So somebody I want to touch on. Paul Fegan.
Oh, yeah,
people
Fig.
In the legal,
yeah.
Fig. Okay.
The magician.
People, and his Excalibur car and his juggling in Westwood.
Now, what's going on with him? I heard he got evicted or something like that. What's going on with him?
Oh, no. You're going to,
Yeah.
Okay. A guy I grew up with named Alan Mark. Alan Alan was from Bel Air. His dad was somebody. Alan was a lifelong EMT, and Alan was with the Los Angeles County Safety Police. He originally was with what they called the Park Police. They became safety police. They became sheriff's deputies after that, and then Alan retired early and moved off to Texas. Okay, so when we're going to college, Alan had been friends with Paul Fegan, Fig. Paul Fegan was famous for the Fegan Suites. He would go out and rent an entire floor of a building and then turn it into office space and clerks and whatever, and then rent out the space to lawyers, and he made a lot of money doing it. And that became his prime business. Okay, very good guy. He also was heavily involved in the music business. For example, David Bowie. When David Bowie, I think, was being repped by Mercury Records, it was Paul Fegan that introduced David Bowie to Hollywood and the world. He was involved in that. He was involved in a bunch of other stuff. A very famous singer's husband actually OD'd and died in Fegan's house. So how I got to Fegan was Alan became friends with Paul Fegan. Alan was doing security for these world-famous Fegan parties. He dragged me in doing it. So we were the lesser security. Paul lived on a hill over West Hollywood up there. And we would, be watching the cars and directing people and doing stuff like that. And here's the kicker. And they had two great, big, tough dudes at the front door. And one of them was Bill Mentzer.
Mm-hmm. Really?
One of them was Bill Mentzer.
And
so, again, crossroads. We're all in the fishbowl. Today,
and this singer's ex-husband or estranged husband, they were going through a very rocky divorce at the time, correct?
Correct. And he turns up dead at Paul Fegen's house, and Paul, told certain individuals that they lived there, but he didn't, because he didn't want to get involved in it. Bottom line was, it was a drug overdose, and that was that. But kind of a really, the people I would meet at those parties. You wouldn't, what did they call them? Those two brothers that were the weightlifters, the Barbarian brothers. I met them there. I met, all kinds of people that were on television shows and movie people, and they were great parties. So let's fast forward.
Yeah, what's going on with by the way, Tony Sperl is the king of these stories. But go ahead. What was the?
The crazy thing is, they're true.
No, I hear you, bro. I hear you.
So I worked with. We did these parties for years. I probably did Paul Fegen parties for maybe seven years. I probably did them for about 7 years. Evidently, Paul got disbarred. Something happened. He got disbarred. His life started to unravel. He was living in some kind of an apartment, still in Beverly Hills. And then a couple of years ago, it comes to light that Paul was old and sick. He's like 91. He's alone in a convalescent hospital in Westwood. Money's gone. He's there. There's some stuff on Facebook about it, them asking, please come and visit Paul. So all those friends he had, and now he's there with nothing. Terrible.
So there's no happy ending to the story?
There's no happy ending to him.
Really? And you think...
He was always good to me. He was always good to me. I liked him. But you talk about connections. I wish his mind was still there. He'd be a great one to put on the show.
No, I tried to reach out to him. He wouldn't even get back to me. But the thing is, it's fascinating because, like you said, here's somebody who has such a tragedy happen. Such a headache in their life. It disappears at this guy's house, and this is someone with a lot of money. You think they would, you think you remember your old friends in situations like that, but it doesn't seem to be that way.
So that's that. Yeah. Let's go on to something else that we talked about earlier. And I'm going to have this guy come on your show.
Yeah.
Like you said, this guy's going to get out of prison, I believe, in November. There is a guy that has come across my path. He called me again this morning. I have his book. It was sent to me yesterday. He's come up with a book. And he claims that he murdered Zodiac. He killed Zodiac. So he's been convicted of first-degree murder. He got a 25 to life sentence. He did 21 years. He is getting out. And he is claiming the guy that he killed was Zodiac. He didn't know it until like a year or two later when he started connecting the dots. And Zodiac turns out to be somebody that most people wouldn't think he was. So it's an alternate theory of this whole Zodiac killer thing. And he's obviously, if Zodiac really was alive today, he'd be dead because he'd be so old.
Yeah.
But it's an alternative theory of what happened, and I'm going to have him, he already knows, he's going to contact you, and he's going to come on your show with his book, and he's going to tell you everything that came on. What I've read, what I've been told, what I've looked into is absolutely fascinating. Whether it's true or not, I don't know.
Yeah, there's so many stories about the Zodiac, and I was off the air talking to some guy too, and he wanted me to take him to go dig up some buried guns and this whole thing. We had to hire a helicopter. There's just, and that was a whole. He was connected to other people too on the show. Just there's so many stories. It's just like we were saying off the air. It's just one of those things that'll never be solved. You know what I mean? It's just too much disinfo going on around that. Let me ask you this, though, man. Now, you talk to a lot of people, though, on death row. What is it that inspires you to do that? What's the fascination with that?
Well, the crazy thing was, okay, so working with Schreck, dealing with some investigations of the Manson stuff, which I think Schreck even said, and he'll say when he's on your show, you know, it's old hat. It's 55 years ago, 56 years ago. A lot of young people don't even know who the hell Charles Manson was, any of these people, and nobody cares. Okay? And there are all the alternate theories in that particular case. So I'm looking into this stuff, and there's a guy, as a matter of fact, who's coming out with a book. And if I get a chance, I'm going to have him on your show also. His name's Kenneth Nowlin, Nowlin. Death row inmate. He was a robber, serial robber with a gun. And he got sent to Corcoran State Prison. He was in the same pod and in a cell directly next to Charles Manson. They became friends, and he's writing a book about it. And then later he got transferred to another prison yard. And because of gang violence, he killed somebody, and he got put on death row. Okay. Because of that connection, he was in contact with Nicholson Schreck, who has obviously written 2 books about Charles Manson and made the documentary Charles Manson Superstar. And he was talking to this guy, and I said, well, maybe I should talk to him, Nick. And we did, and I've been talking to this man for 5-6 years now. And then he turned me on to the next guy who was in the cell next to him at San Quentin State Prison on death row, which is a very fascinating guy, which is Joseph Danks, the Koreatown slasher. He was convicted of 7 murders, claiming he did 8. He killed homeless people. And one of the people he killed actually was one of his cellmates. That's what gave him a death sentence. Very fascinating people. And they just happen to know all these people that are on death row. I've talked to Carpenter. He's the oldest serial killer, because of these 2 guys, the oldest serial killer in the United States in his 90s. He's now at the medical facility at Stockton, California, doing a life sentence for murder. I talked to him. So,
but Tony, like,
people
what is
saying,
it? What,
hang on, people saying that, saying that prison is headquarters. It is. There's so much talent and connections and intelligence going on there, and they still have feelers and fingers and soldiers out on the street. It's just absolutely amazing. There's a book in it. There's definitely a book in it. Go ahead.
And what about, because you know, listen, I deal with some of these guys in prison too. They got these old cases, you know, and it's such a chore dealing with the phone calls, and then they passing your phone number on to other people and stuff like that. It's just, you don't just get annoyed by all that. You're more social than me, I guess. Yeah.
I restrict the phone calls because I know what you're talking about, and to tell you, your listeners, they will call you 8 to 10 times a day, and I just won't put up with it.
And then when you don't answer, then they have their friends call you up on the outside. Well, oh, come here to pick up the call. You know, it's too much.
I don't get that.
No,
I don't get that. I don't get that. But what I do get,
I'm too nice.
What I do get is, though, they're always looking what they call runners. They're looking for females. Females to be in contact with them, females to send them money, females that they can talk to on the phone. They're always looking for that. But, no, I try to keep it strictly business. Joseph Danks, on the other hand, and you're going to say, oh, my God, he's a serial killer. Yeah. But when you talk to Joseph Danks, it's like talking to he's in his 60s, like a little boy. But as Kenneth Nowlin told me, 2 things. You don't let Danks stand behind you, and you make sure he doesn't get access to a piece of metal. Otherwise, he's going to kill you. But other than that, he's just like talking to you like you're talking to your little brother. He seems to be a nice guy. I just don't want to be in a room.
Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. You ever any contact with him? Talk to people around him?
No, but Joseph Danks did.
Oh, really?
That was Joseph Danks' best friend in the LA County Jail.
Oh, really? Well, what do you make of the stories of Richard Ramirez doing remote viewing and be able to astral plane travel and all that stuff? I
think Richard Ramirez was insane.
I know someone. Someone who talked to him, and he would describe things in her kitchen. What do you know about guys in prison, death row types that are astral planing?
Let me comment on this.
Go ahead.
You know about this prisoner sixth sense stuff?
It's
almost like gypsies doing a cold read.
Okay.
A gypsy can meet you and tell you things about yourself that you go, oh, it's amazing. And all they're doing is a cold read because they're good at it. They size you up and try to put you in a box and feed it back to you. I think that's probably what Ramirez was doing, because I don't think he had any superhuman powers. And by the way, I knew another guy, Jody, who had been a cop, and he was in the LA County jail. He got himself in some trouble, and he was also in a cell right next to Richard Ramirez. And the deputies would call Richard Ramirez Ricky because he hated it. He hated it. And so Jody used to, like, you know, from his cell to the other one, like, Ricky, Ricky. And he said, Ramirez would go, "There's no Ricky here. This is Satan." And he'd laugh. Jody would laugh because he knew the guy was just playing him. So that's my take on Richard Ramirez and the people I know that have had contact with him. But Danks liked him. Danks thought he was a nice guy.
Then what about other people in prison doing remote viewing?
I don't know about that. I think my gut feeling would be it's some kind of a game. I could be wrong, but my gut feeling is it's some kind of game, because the guys in prison that I have a master's degree in correctional counseling, they play games. I have to sort this stuff, like this guy claiming to have killed the Zodiac. I've had to, sift it. I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying he's wrong. Not yet. I'm working on it. And all these other testimonies and stuff. I mean, again, I compare statements from one person to another person to another person, and then I have to look at, well, what was their view of this incident? Where were they involved in it? That's again, Tupac, Biggie Smalls. Look at all the theories they came up with. But the bottom line in the Tupac thing is, 30 years later, we know who the killers were. 3 of them are dead. And the 4th one, Keefe D, is getting himself tried for it.
How did you first connect to Nicholson Schreck, and what's your fascination with Schreck, who's an openly Satanist?
Well, he claims to now be a Buddhist and a Buddhist consultant like that. Okay, so I was aware of him from high school, junior college, like that. Didn't hang out with him. Like I said before, a connection into that punk scene would be Dinky Grant, who later married DJ Bonebreak from the punk band X. She lives here in the San Fernando Valley. I haven't talked to her in years. And her brother, who was our good friend, died. How I reconnected was, so I get invited, to the Manson funeral, and these people find out that I was a former policeman, and they go nuts. I mean, they went insane. Okay. And then they were claiming that I sold information to, was it TMZ?
There's a picture, right?
And yeah, they claimed. I didn't take the picture. I had nothing to do with it. I had nothing to do with TMZ. And I get word from somebody in the Manson world that Nicholson Schreck was working on this and knew that I was not involved in this. So I just reached out to him, and we, again, went to the same school, same friends, same general people.
So it's only recently you met with Schreck?
Reconnected with Schreck probably 7 years ago.
Okay, wow, is that long ago? Wow. And you got to come on more often. Now, so then, and Schreck stayed at your house?
Schreck has stayed at my house. Right now, he's got an apartment. So he normally lives in Germany, but he is making some more documentaries right now here in Los Angeles. So he's staying here right now. And by the way, I didn't mention this. Charles Manson's son, Michael Bruner, is a very close friend of mine. He stayed at my house. I like Michael Bruner. He's the salt of the earth, former U.S. Army. He lives in another state, has a family. He's a wonderful man. He's writing a book, and Schreck and I both sat down with him and his ghostwriter, and we contributed to that book, I think, 2 weeks ago. We had a meeting with him and like that. So,
Then what is Tony Sperl's? Are you an occultist yourself? What is you surround yourself with these people?
Well, no, I really don't surround myself with cultists. My family is actually a Jewish family that didn't practice Judaism. And my sister died in 2002. I was left without family members. My parents are dead, grandparents. My only sister was dead and like that. And I went and saw a rabbi. Oh, this is a great story. I went and saw a very famous rabbi in Los Angeles. Angeles. And I walk in, hey, what can I do for you? Like that. And so I'm telling my story, and I said, hey, look, they're all dead. I've not practiced Judaism, have nothing really to do with it. I've denied being Jewish. My sister just died. And he said, how old was your sister? I said, she was 46. He goes, how old are you? I said, 44. And he goes, oh, another one. And I went, another one? He goes, yeah, it's about the age. They get the feeling of, quote, Yiddishkeit, feeling for Judaism and trying to come back. So there's a small shul here in the San Fernando Valley, mainly older people. And the wonderful thing is I get to participate in it by the internet. I don't have to go. Sometimes I do, but I don't have to go. So from the occultism part, I'm not involved in it. Now, here's the proviso. My grandfather, Harry Sperl, was what they called an early bird. Those were the original licensed pilots in the United States. He was one of them. He was the first pilot to circle Los Angeles in an airplane. He is the founder of the Santa Monica Airport. Here's a crazy story. He's flying his airplane. West Los Angeles, Santa Monica was nothing but fields. They were farms. There weren't homes there, nothing. He's having engine trouble. He sees a road ahead of him, an east-west road, and he lands on it, on this farm. And he said, boy, this would make a great airport. He talks to the farmer. He starts renting space on the farm, and from that, it became Santa Monica Airport. That man, Harry Sperl, who was an oil wildcatter, he was a musician, he was a businessman, he worked for Earl C. Anthony, who owned KMPC Radio and was the biggest auto sales guy in Southern California. He was his general manager. He was the general manager of Lockheed before World War II. He was a test pilot. Harry did it all. Got killed in a car crash across the street from 20th Century Fox Studios in '68. And here's the backside of the story, the dark family secret. Harry was an occultist. Now you're going to say, well, how did this Jewish guy become this occultist? I own the historic, everybody knows this, it's in the media. I own the historic Sperl building, which is an old brick building in Little Tokyo in downtown LA. And it was my great-grandfather's blacksmith shop. They were Jewish cowboys that had come to LA. And that particular building, you've obviously heard of the Pentecostal movement.
Oh, yeah.
And the Azusa Street Revival, which was William Seymour. Well, that Azusa Street is 2 short blocks from this building. And it's been documented by some Christian scholars from, not Biola, from, I can't think of the seminary, Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, that my building actually was used in this Azusa Street Revival 1906, where people were speaking in tongues and healings and all that kind of stuff. And that's where my grandfather got a fascination in it. But his fascination was not, quote, Christian. His fascination was from the occult side of it. So I have a family, connection to that, but it was born and died with my grandfather. So
meaning like the Pentecostals believe in signs and wonders and miracles and visions and prophecy and all these things.
Correct. But Harry was not looking at it from that standpoint. I think my grandfather Harry was looking at it from the standpoint of, quote, spiritualism.
Right.
And there was and if you look into it, which I did, there was a lot of spiritualism that was going on in Los Angeles. It, for whatever reason, became a location where a lot of people came to practice this. So I'm not so sure that this Azusa Street Revival, which brought in tens of thousands of people, and we're not disputing that, it's a fact.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder how many of them were actually not Christians, but were spiritual kind of people. We don't know.
One of the other things you have on your notes here is organized crime and the connections to the occult.
Okay, so this gets back to what I had talked earlier about people wanting the ashes,
Right.
wanted to buy the ashes of Charles Manson. And so there have been drug gangs from Mexico, Colombia, whatever, that have actually hired well-known spiritualists, voodoo people, whatever, from Haiti, from Louisiana, like that. And the FBI and the DEA have tied these people into RICO charges of conspiracy because they're doing work. One of the people, I think, was paid $900,000 for a year's worth of work to cast spells to keep the DEA and the FBI away from these drug traffickers. And they locked it up. And I find this most fascinating that the United States government, we talked about Major Ed Gaines and all of that. I find it fascinating that the United States government would take that so seriously that they would put people in prison that were providing magic on behalf of the cartels. And that goes along with something that I don't know if you and I have ever discussed this or not, but Nicholson Schreck and I have our fingers on the actual Manson murder car.
Yeah,
the
right.
actual
It's in
car,
the notes here. What's going on with that? Yeah.
documented. It was seen once in public, and that was at a homicide convention in Las Vegas for only law enforcement officers. As far as I know, Schreck, myself, and Scott Michaels from Dearly Departed Tours are the only outside people that have had contact with this car. And there has been some, which is crazy, there has been some interest from different groups in purchasing the car. Some of those groups are in Latin America. There was, you'll love this story, a multi-millionaire in developing, homes and buildings and stuff like that. He had made a 7-figure offer to buy the car and then pulled it back. And then was somebody very wealthy, has different collections of different kinds of stuff from Europe through Schreck, that also made a 7-figure offer and then took it back, decided that they weren't going to buy it. So there is an interest at this particular time in the car, which raises, again, for your audience loves this kind of stuff, and obviously I do too. The interest is you have all this Stargate stuff going on with the government. Then you've got the government, you've got, drug traffickers, organized crime, whatever, casting spells and going to voodoo ladies and all of this kind of stuff to try to thwart the law enforcement from putting them in jail. And then law enforcement taking that so seriously that they're putting them in jail. And then you have people trying to buy icons from famous murder scenes or whatever, thinking that they're going to get power or the ashes of a guy like Charles Manson. I don't get it. It's something really to be explored.
Yeah,
It's
NSA was
really
doing experiments with Ouija boards and stuff too as well. That fellow, have you heard of that fellow Vance? He was mixed up with the whole Art Bell thing too. And you know this story?
No.
They went AWOL from NSA for a while, but then they were doing experiments with. He was involved with Scientology and involved with this Ouija boards and the NSA. And this guy was on Art Bell and predicted 9/11 that Bin Laden was going to crash into the buildings in New York in September, months earlier.
I don't remember that one. But
Right,
you bring up
no one talks about it.
You bring up Scientology. Hang on. You bring up Scientology. I got nothing against those people, but you bring up Scientology, and one of the other factors that has been floating around that I'm trying to clean up today too.
Yeah.
I have been accused of being a member of the Process Church. Bill has been accused of being a member of the Process Church. Nicholas Schreck's been accused of being a member of the Process Church. So let me dispel this. All three of us are not members of the Process Church. I definitely am not. But I did talk to Tim Wiley before he died. I talked to Tim Wiley. He was very gracious, very nice to me. And Tim Wiley, spelled it out The Process Church was a splinter of Scientology. They were doing their thing. It evidently didn't work out for them. They were not killing animals and doing sacrifices, and they weren't Satan worshipers. And that was it. It was just, it came up, and Maury Terry kind of ran with some of this, and that's the story.
Then what about the cult in Undermeyer Park in Yonkers, the children? They were sacrificing animals.
Well, that's spin-offs. You're talking about spin-offs.
Okay.
But, I really don't want to throw this because I don't want to get in a lawsuit. There's an alleged Christian organization that's very close to where I live.
Okay.
And I live in San Fernando Valley, but in an area that is very rural. We have horses and stuff here. And I hear pop, pop, pop all the time. There are people shooting guns out here, nuts all the time. So I'm hearing this pop, pop, pop like 8 o'clock in the morning. I look out my window, and this religious organization that's very close to us, guy's out there with a rifle. He's shooting at the crows. And I thought, oh, this is cute. We have homes here and people and children. So I try calling these people on the phone, don't answer. So I run up there, and I confront this guy and the guy that's head of this base. And the guy is basically telling me he can do whatever he wants. And I said, that's fine. I will get on this phone. I will call the Los Angeles Police Department, and I will have more cops here than you could shake a stick at. You're shooting a gun in the city of L.A. You're killing animals. There's 2 crimes right there to begin with. And so the guy basically said, okay, fine, I got it. And the head of the organization is like, look, we don't want any problems, whatever, okay. So I turn around and tell some other people in the animal organizations that live in this community, and they call the LAPD, and they show up in force, and they referred the case to the district attorney's office. So, and they found a dead crow, which this guy got charged with. On this thing of different religious organizations and animals, and this is not a cult from the standpoint of these are not spiritualist Satanists or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just allegedly a regular Christian organization. But animal abuse, animal killing, it's rampant in this alleged religious communities. So I don't put a lot of stock to that in and of itself, if that makes any sense.
Now, I used to see, the Facebook algorithm, I guess, has put a wedge between us because I don't see your posts at all anymore. But I used to see, and you are very active in animal rescue, and I've seen you, there was a big fire, and you're out there saving animals. This guy's crazy. I'd be going the other way. I see that big cloud of smoke. I'm heading the other direction. Tony Sperl's driving into it.
Well, okay. So you're talking about the Creek Fire, one of the largest fires in Los Angeles County's history. So it's about 100 yards. This involves this Christian organization. It's about 100 yards from my home. The fire's coming. Well, at the same time, I'm dealing with 24 horses on a ranch that is just next to me. And because of my commitment to those horses, I don't own them, but commitment to those horses, when I build over my back wall of my home and I'm in the ranch and I'm running up there, every one of those horses came to me because they know me.
Right.
They came to me for rescue. Okay, so we got those dealt with immediately. And then there was a little girl by the name of Danica, little girl, she's like 18, but she was tiny. And she's hiking up the canyon. And I said to Mike, the manager of the ranch, I said, where's she going? He goes, she's going up the canyon to rescue horses. And I said, that canyon's on fire. And he goes, yeah, I know. And I said, well, should I go with her? And he goes, that's your choice. So I catch up with her, and I said, Danica, look, here's the deal. I got video of it. I think you saw that video. I'm walking up the canyon. It's on fire. We're walking right into the fire. And I said, Danica, if this gets too bad, I'm going to grab you by the back of your hair, and I'm going to drag you out of here. We're going to get killed. So we get up, and there's a bar up in this canyon, and there's a garage. It's off of the road. A horse had actually fallen from the road and wedged itself between the road and this garage. And there were some cowboys there and stuff like that. So I'm there talking to the horse. A vet shows up, starts tranquilizing the horse. There's a news crew filming me. We break out the back of the garage, drag the horse through, and horses were like 1,000 pounds, get it into a trailer and take off as the fire's coming down the hill on top of us. So, and that was just dedication of people. I'm sorry to say, nobody took responsibility for destroying the garage, and the bar owner wound up having to pay for it. And then we went down the canyon, and where this other fire was burning, and I was able to get a battalion chief to listen to me, and he brought in a fire engine, and it saved this Christian organization, and it saved the homes on my block. So it was like 3 days of firefighting that we did, running around, but mainly to save the animals that we wanted to. And may I say this, you're giving me the opportunity. I tell everybody this, please, get your dog or cat spayed. They'll be happier being spayed. We're not going to have all these unwanted animals that former State Senator Kevin De Leon, who ran for the U.S. Senate here, once said, it's not euthanizing animals at the dog pound, it's murdering them. They are murdered by the state of California or Ohio or wherever you are. So please get your animals spayed and neutered. As I normally don't toot my horn, but I'm going to do it today because we're talking about a lot of stuff.
Well, Tony,
the Amanda Foundation.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got the Amanda Foundation of Beverly Hills runs the mobile spay and neuter hospital for the city of LA. The truck is owned by them. The city sponsors it, and it goes out and spays and neuters, like 7,000 dogs and cats a year. That truck cost $250,000. Now people are going to scream bullshit. There was a famous person in Hollywood when they needed a new truck 14 years ago that said, I will put up the first $50,000 if people will match me at $50,000. People know this story, but you're the first person in the media that's ever heard it. I was very dear friends with Louis Tom Dragna, the head of the Italian mafia in Southern California. Very dear friends with him. He was in animal rescue. Okay, I'm not playing with you. You can look it up.
Okay.
I go to him. He was the smartest business guy I ever met. So the Amanda Foundation says to me, yeah, can you be the first to throw this $50,000? So I go to Dragna. Dragna says, he was on the board of directors of my nonprofit. And he said, do we have the money? I said, we got the money. He goes, this is what we're going to do. Get a letter from the Amanda Foundation that says they have 60 days to raise the money. If they don't, they give us our money back. I said, fine. They gave us the letter. We gave them a certified check for $50,000. We raised the money and bought the truck. The famous movie star, this is the allegation. This movie star is now dead. This famous movie person allegedly never gave their $50,000. That's a true story. So that is my commitment to.
Well, what was the circumstances of their death, Tony? What are you saying here? Well, how did they die? Natural causes?
Think of a celebrity that you saw 5 times a week on a game show.
Oh, no.
That always talked about animal rescue stuff. That is the allegation. I don't know because I met that person once.
Right.
I met him at an event once. I did not know this person, but that's what was told to me by Amanda, that person put up the pledge and then at the end of the thing didn't give any money.
Well, then let me ask you this. You're tuned into all this animal rescue stuff. Have you ever worked with one of the most prestigious animal rescue organizations out there, the Best Friends for Animals?
Okay, I was involved in a thing. Okay, so I sat as vice president of LA Feeders, which is an organization that was getting free animal food from manufacturers. And then we would distribute it to all these animal organizations and then independent animal rescuers, okay? We were at a meeting of LA City Animal Services, all these different organizations, and they were there. They allegedly were going to sponsor with all their money to make LA a no-kill shelters, and it never happened.
What do you make
That's
of
the only dealings I've had with them?
There seems to be
by the way, they do run a shelter in Los Angeles that has a very good success rate, but they're pretty smart about it. They pick animals that are more adoptable as opposed to just taking anything that Animal Services gets. But it does save animals. So I'm not going to knock them, but I know where you're going with this, that allegedly they were connected to the Process Church and like that. I don't know. The only dealings, like I said, that I've had with them was at that meeting that we went to.
Well, they do have the same exact
supposed...
names as the people who led the Process Church. So there's that allegation there. But what do you make of these? You hear these stories of some of these larger animal rescue places. That there's a lot of transporting of these animals back and forth across the country at huge expense. What do you make of that?
I could talk about that too. Okay, so I have since I was heavily involved in feeding feral cats. So you feed them in a colony. You get them fairly friendly because they're feral.
Yeah.
And you trap them. You get them fixed so they don't have babies. Okay. Well, some of the cats are friendlier than others, and you think that they're adoptable. So there was this whole thing that was going on here in Los Angeles that was dealing with transporting these cats to Oregon and Washington State. So I get some of these cats, and I get them fixed and shots, and outside my normal sources, I had to go to a regular vet, and each cat cost me about $380 to get them prepared, ready for transport. And then the transport blew up, and it was a transport that had been going for a while. What the problems were to this day, I'm still not sure. I called the organization up in Oregon that was receiving these animals, and the person that answered the phone said, "Who the hell are you?" And I said, "Well, I've sent you animals before." And they were like, You're the Sperl Family Foundation. We don't know you. And I said, "Well, I'm connected to so-and-so." And they were like, "We don't know them either." That's the problem with these transports. Somebody's a connection, and then people pile the animals to them that go to a third party. And in some cases, the third party really doesn't want these animals. But in other cases, it does work out. So, but that was my direct connection that I can speak to, that it just didn't work out. So I spent all this money on these animals that eventually just basically went back to the colonies. They were fed every day, and it was fine, but it would have been better if they had gone into a home. And then I don't know, did you ever watch the video, the documentary they made of me called, I think it's called Dogs on Skid Row, 1987 to present, with Tony Sperl. You should look at it. It's a good one, and it documents my work on Skid Row with animals, because I did it for 30 years.
I'm familiar with it. I'm sure. I don't know if I remember watching it, but I know people sent it to me. I know that. Now we are out of time, though. You gave me an hour, and I held you over for an hour and 45 because I'm cruel, and another 18 minutes off the air. So I've taken up your whole day. But in the next minute or two or so, as much as you want, what would you like to leave us with, man? I want to have you come back sooner than maybe right after Schreck. We'll have you come back so we can follow up on that stuff. But what do you want to leave us with, man?
I think that number one, I would ask people when they're looking at all these different cases and stuff, that it's not necessarily conspiracy. A lot of it is just birds of a feather flock together. And you run into people. So you have to look at some of this stuff with a jaundiced eye. The second thing I'd like to leave you with is obviously the animal stuff, and I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to speak on it. Again, I would ask people to spay and neuter their dogs and cats if they would, and I would ask people to find a reputable animal rescue and either give them a cash donation or drop off dog food and cat food, because I know many organizations that need it. And even animal shelters are always looking for newspaper. I know that for a fact.
Now, what about
that's what I would say.
Normally, before I start an interview, I say, the plugs. Do you have anything you want to plug, like a website or a book deal or a Facebook or anything you want to plug?
I don't have a book deal, but I will plug, because this will get them on your show, is Detective Ladd has a book. Detective Robert Ladd, the Compton gang detective, has a book called Once Upon a Time in Compton. I'm not connected to this book at all, but it's a great book. Once Upon a Time in Compton. Get a copy of it by Robert Ladd. And also, if you want to know about the rappers and the gangs and Compton and Hollywood and like that, on Facebook there's a thing called The Murder Rap, RAP, and it will tell you everything that you want to know. I love it because it's stuff that I knew, but it puts it together for laymen that you can look at everything that went on in the rappers and the gangs and Tupac and Biggie and all of that kind of stuff. And then look out for this coming book. He's going to be on your show. This coming book of this gentleman who's claiming that he killed Zodiac. That should be a good read.
Yeah, that's all good stuff. I definitely want to get a hold of that lad fellow there. And Tony Sperl, I want to thank you. It's been too long. I've had you on the show a few times, and you've been so kind to me off the air. You helped me book Alan Grahm, and I think others too, I'm sure. And whenever I've come to you with a question or advice or something like that, you've always been very open and helpful to me. And so I want to thank you for all that. And it's been too long. We got to have you come back more often because there's just way too much we can't cover in just 2 hours.
Exactly. We will. I'll be back and we'll talk about some more stuff. Hopefully I'll have some new stuff for you. All right.
Well, don't get into new trouble, man. Don't go out meeting any new hitmen on my behalf, okay? All right? We don't know anybody else on death row just to get back on the show, okay? Listen, bro, thank you so much, man.
All right, I'll talk to you. Thank you.
Good night, sir. Bye.